Red, California. I'm Ann Elizabeth. I'm one of the moderators here at Flip It Red, where our goal is to flip as many seats from blue to red as possible. Today we are speaking with Burton Brink. Burton is running for state assembly in the 49th district. The district encompasses the western San Gabriel Valley, with its western side abutting Los Angeles city limits. Those areas include Alhambra, Arcadia, El Monte, Montebello, Monterey Park, Rosemead, San Gabriel, San Marino, South El Monte, and Temple City. Burton is running against Democrat incumbent Ed Chow. Burton is more than qualified to be a state lawmaker. Burton is a retired LA County Sheriff's Department sergeant. He is a commissioner of the city of Arcadia and is on the board of directors on Crime Survivors, which is a nonprofit dedicated to victims of crime and their families through advocating and providing supportive resources. That's really incredible. Burton, I have to add, I don't think I've ever seen such a long list of endorsements from any of my candidates, and this is only a partial list, I hear. 11 pages here, tightly squeezed endorsements. Each page, it's incredible. It's truly impressive and lauded by several endorsements in law enforcement, which are such strong endorsements. You have LA County Fraternal Order of Police, California Fraternal Order of Police. You also have California GOP, LA GOP. The list is endless and it speaks volumes. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ann.
Please tell us why you are running for state assembly.
Sure. Well, Ann, I've grown up here in the city of Arcadia. I've been part of this community and district since 1967. As a matter of fact, my background is the front of my house my mom designed and my parents built. So I've been part of this community for over 50 plus years. And I've seen what's been going on in this district. It used to be a Republican district until they did their gerrymandering and made it into a Democrat district. And I started researching Ed Chow when I was still working and seeing, what's coming out of the area, and finding out that he has been voting for laws that have basically affected law enforcement and the safety of my community. So when I retired, I was actually asked by a number of people in the area if I would run for state assembly and take him out. So that is one of the reasons why I'm running. I've worked for the Arcadia Police Department, the Monterey Park Police Department, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, which I retired from. And so all those areas are in my district. And the 49th Assembly District is all the areas I worked in. So it's really important to see that not only have I grown up here and worked here, I'm still here, as opposed to my opponent who actually had to move into the area to run for office when he ran 8 years ago. So to me, that makes a big difference. You actually have somebody who's been part of the district running. They're running for the right reasons. I don't need the job. I'm retired. I can go out and enjoy myself. But I'm so upset with what's happening in the state of California that I decided that I needed to step up and run for office and make a difference for our community.
Well, first, Burton, I'd like to talk about your opponent, Ed Chow. His record is just very disappointing, to say the least. He has failed to show on votes, or if he has voted, it's been extremely hard left, progressive. Every vote he does show for. I mean, these were shocking, some of them that he voted for, the Proposition 47, Proposition 57. There's just been some really troubling, when I was going through the things that he's voted yes on. But why don't we go ahead and talk about some of those things?
Sure. So Ed Chow has been very much in support of far left policies. So AB 109 actually came out just prior to him getting elected, but he supported what AB 109 is, which was releasing the state prisoners into the county jail system. And then the next one was Prop 47, which was in 2014. It was making petty thefts from $450 to $950. And you basically can do unlimited numbers of those. And 57 was changing violent crimes such as spousal abuse, assault on a peace officer, arson, human trafficking, domestic violence, assault with a deadly weapon, all these different things that they considered nonviolent crimes. So I called AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57, the trifecta for criminals. With all of these being pulled together, it's now letting more and more people out of jail. And then when, of course, the pandemic came, you got 18,000 people plus being released from jail because they didn't want them to give COVID, but that's okay. They'll go out and they just go commit their crimes and they get written a ticket because they did the no bail. And it just you see the revolving cycle that's been going on here. So on the November ballot, there's a Proposition 20, and it's from Keep California Safe. And what that does is tighten up Prop 47 and 57, reclassifies some of these, what they considered nonviolent crimes, assault with a deadly weapon, those type of things, into violent crimes. And it also takes the way of Prop 47, when you can go in and go into any store and steal less than $950 and do it 30 times in one day. They don't accumulate on you. It's just one case, and it's a slap on the wrist. You will never do any time. So you've got your career criminals that are out there doing that. Prop 20, what it will do is actually, after the second time, if you do your third one, they can actually give you a felony, and that will stop that revolving cycle. So I'm recommending a yes on Prop 20. There's actually two props I'm only doing yes on in the November ballot here in California. Prop 20 and Prop 22, which is the AB5 killer, but we can discuss that in a little bit. But this is what Prop 20 is. It's done by California Safe. I highly recommend people look them up online and find out a little bit more about them. But it's to help fix these problems that Prop 47 and 57 and AB 109, the trifecta for the criminals having just total freedoms.
Last week, California voted on SB 145, which is the pedophile bill, which is a step in the wrong direction, essentially goes into the direction of normalizing pedophilia and allows pedophiles to identify with a sexual deviant behavior as a preference rather than criminalize the abhorrent behavior. It's dangerous. So I often ask questions to my candidates that just make me scratch my head about California, but this one is on another level. What is California thinking? How can we legalize sexual harm to children? And that has to sink in with everyone, because it just makes me so sad and ask just why.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And being a board member of Crime Survivors, we were dead against this. It is the wrong direction. It is normalizing sex with a child. And you have the far left saying, fact checkers saying that, oh, that's a false statement, has nothing to do with pedophiles and this, that, and the other. Okay, so you're all right with your 14-year-old daughter having sex with a 24-year-old man, and your 14-year-old can't even vote yet, still needs permission to go on a field trip, but it's okay that they can go ahead and have sex with this, 10-year-old man. And they're thinking that this is supposed to accommodate the LGBTQ, I don't know all those letters. I mean, that's their thing, and I don't have a problem with that portion. But however, when you're bringing it down to, somebody who's under the age of 18 and making it normal is not normal. And the state of California has not been normal in many, many years. That's part of the problem in Sacramento. Common sense went out the door many, many years ago. It is time to bring the common sense back in. There's candidates such as myself, Eric Early's and others that are trying to bring common sense back into government. And that's what we need to do all the way, not just in California, but across the United States and in DC, because it's crazy. And California is so progressive. If it passes here in California, it destroys the rest of the country because they do it too. And you see it from all these people who have been voting far left and Democratic views, and then they get sick and tired of what's happening in the state of California, and they move, and they take their views with them. So now they're doing it to Arizona, they're doing it to New Mexico, they're doing it to Texas, and and other parts of the country. And that's why you hear people saying, don't Californianize our state. It's like, yeah, correct. Because if you've got your far left views and you voted all this into California and now it's all messed up, you're the reason, and you're still leaving California because you can't handle it, you obviously are voting the wrong direction, and that's what's happening in the state of California. It's what's happening for the last 30 plus years. You know, you've got the Browns and Gray Davis, and you know, now you've got Newsom, who's Brown on steroids. And when you have that, it totally destroys an entire state that was such a wonderful state. But we can bring it back. And we just need to get the right people in the office that will stand up for the right thing.
And I was given the perspective at one point, well, that's because Hollywood has so many pedophiles that they're falling apart. And now when they get caught for all the stuff that is in the news with Hollywood, now we can say, oh, but, you know, they're just identifying. They're, you know, and so I think it's a bill that protects Hollywood.
I think it's to protect Hollywood, and it probably is protecting some politicians. So, you know, if we really want to go down that road, it's like, I'm sorry, but we've got politicians who are having some issues, you know, and that's kind of one of the things that I look at. You know, I'm not a politician. You know, yeah, I'm a retired cop. I'm a community member, and I know what's happening in our communities, and I'm seeing what Sacramento is doing, and it's got to stop. We've got to stop this nonsense coming out of Sacramento, and so that's what brought me into this position. I'm sacrificing time with my family, my kids, my wife, you know, our travel plans, everything is on hold because I'm trying to get elected to help fix California and save it, because I'm third generation here. So we've got to do something. I want something for my kids, you know, and I've already got nephews, and one of my kids that's already moved out of the state because they can't handle it anymore.
Gosh, incredible. We need to talk about Prop 209, legalizing racial discrimination, something we fight hard against, yet here we are, the left, trying to legalize discrimination. How about that? What is this about?
So Prop 209 back in 1995, I believe it was, basically made it to where it didn't matter what race, anything that you were on the same playing field to get an education or anything in a government office, employment, that type of thing. And now comes this 145, and it's basically to go backwards to what we had prior to basically make racial profiling and that type of thing legal again. And that's the wrong direction. Why are we going backwards? We've already fought that fight, and we fixed it by, you know, didn't matter if you were white, black, brown, Asian, doesn't matter what race you are. And now we want to go back to that. It's ridiculous. We're all talking about, hey, we're all equal and Black Lives Matter and all this other thing, yet here we are going backwards. No, it's the wrong direction. My opponent, Ed Chow, actually on this decided to not vote at all. He abstained from voting on this, even though the community here in Arcadia, the 49th Assembly District, knocked down his door and made phone calls and said, hey, you know, you have to agree that, you know, we don't want to be discriminated against, and you need to vote no on this. And he abstained from it, which basically means that he didn't go either way, and he would accept whatever the majority want. Well, you know, as a Democrat in California right now, you have the majority anyway. So you're going with your party, even though you didn't vote. He basically accepted them to do that. So, you know, I've spoken. This is Proposition 16 on the ballot. I'm a no on 16. It's to make sure that we don't have any racial discrimination. It's equal for people to get jobs and get into schools without having the affirmative action for racial profiling, as far as I'm concerned, with schools and jobs in the government office. So this is a big no on 16. It's very, very important for the state of California to make sure we don't go backwards in our discrimination for folks.
Okay, great. No on 16. I love talking to the assembly people because you guys always know every prop, and I learned so much. I think most people go into the voting booths and they like have no idea. They bring a piece of paper or, you know, print out the Orange County registers, voting, you know, nobody knows.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I try and tell people, you know, I have people go, I'm no on everything. Okay, you're the reason we still have a gas tax, because that was a yes to repeal the gas tax. I vote no on everything that raises our taxes. And I've told people, you have to read what it is. I said, in my thing, I go, every voter must pay attention to what propositions are on the ballot. You cannot just vote no based on how the propositions are written. A no vote can mean a yes vote. Take Prop 6, for example, in 2018, the gas tax. A yes vote would have stopped the gas tax. A no vote would keep it. This is why we still have a yearly gas tax, and people do not read propositions. That's how I started my little thing that I'm sending out to my constituents, people in the community going, they always ask me, well, how do I vote? Here you go. And here's an explanation of why you don't just vote no on everything. And I even started it off saying, it's very important that we vote on these propositions, but there's only 2 propositions we're voting yes on, 20 and 22. Everything else is a tax increase or is just total chaos for the state of California.
Burton, you are in law enforcement, and as I mentioned earlier, you are endorsed by many, and that's an understatement, law enforcement agencies, so I feel comfortable with you talking about defunding the police. What is the benefit to inner cities and communities beyond defunding the forces?
Well, first off, defunding is the biggest mistake you could possibly do. Law enforcement has had their budgets cut for years and years and years, every year for many years now because of budget cuts and this, that, and the other. What's happened with that is the training that officers have had has already been cut back because they've taken away the money. Now you're talking about taking additional monies away, 150 million here, 400 million there, depending on your, what agency you're talking about. I think 150 was for LAPD, $400 million from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And you have smaller cities that are taking $3 to $4 million away from their budgets. You have now taken away the ability to train. Training for law enforcement officers, you have to backfill that person with overtime to fill in that spot out on the field while this deputy or officer is getting trained to increase their abilities to do less lethal and less hands-on and making it safer for both the person they're dealing with and the officer. But when you defund the police, you've taken that money away. Now you've got no training. Everybody's complaining that there's, we need more training for police, yet you're taking away the money to train the police. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know how anybody can hop on that train and say, let's defund the police, because that's going to help us. And we'll put that money in the low income areas. And it's like, okay, we did that in 1992 after the Rodney King riots, and they took money into that area to do just that. And what did they do? Nothing. It did not help the communities in any way, shape, or form. Defunding the police will also cut back. So you'll have officers removed from the street. What's the worst area that you can think of in your area? And they're not going to have as many police. How does that make these poorer areas safer without the police there? You're now taking away additional members of the police department. So defunding the police has a wide effect on people, not the affluent. It hurts more of the poorer areas than it does the affluent areas, because the affluent areas will have private security and all these other things that they'll pay for because that's okay for them. They don't care. They've got the money to do it. But our poorer areas and our middle income areas don't have that ability to hire the private security. Therefore, they're losing the police force that their taxes are supposed to pay for to help protect them. One of the other things that I've always mentioned when it comes down to defunding the police and the training, it goes both ways. The public, they get their training from social media, mainstream media, and TV, right? TV, movies, this is what they think police officers are. They think you watch a TV show, cop TV show, and they've had 5 shootings in a 1-hour TV program. And that doesn't happen that way. They think that because they see that on TV, that's gospel. That is what is happening with law enforcement. That's what cops do every day. We go out there and we shoot everybody 15 times a day because we got nothing better to do. It's not what it is. We deliver babies. We save somebody's life. We help rescue someone when they've gone over a cliff. They've been involved in a traffic accident. They're being shot out and we'll be in the way to help protect them. That's what police officers do. There might be some downtime where they're out taking reports of your stuff being stolen out of your car and that type of thing, and they'll try and find the guy that did it to get your stuff back. But it's not what you see on TV, and that's part of what the training needs to be done, is not just training law enforcement officers, but training the public how to deal with a law enforcement officer. If you're stopped by a law enforcement officer, you need to have the ability to obey what they have to say. Because if you do everything the officer asks you to do, you won't have a problem. Doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're black, doesn't matter if you're Asian, doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, Indian, whatever, pick whatever race you want. If you do what the officer says to do, put your hands up, you put your hands up. Come here, you come here. If you disagree with what the officer is asking you, fine. You don't have to get in his face. You don't have to put a flashlight strobing into his face, put a laser beam in his face, throw rocks and throw bottles at him. That's not playing by the rules. If you do what you're told, and even though you didn't do anything, the cop doesn't know that. If you obey what the cop has to say and he realizes, oh yeah, you're right. You're not the person I'm looking for. Thanks for your time. Have a nice day. And away you go. Nothing happened to you. You might not have even gotten a ticket if he pulled you over for speeding because you cooperated with him. But if you're going to be a jerk and you want to fight and you want to get your cell phone in his face and you want to try and see if you can get that lottery money from suing a police agency, you've actually hurt your community more than you've helped it. Just obey what the cop has to say, obey the laws, and you won't have a problem. You won't have an interaction with a cop that's going to be a problem. But if you have a gun, even if the gun falls out, you can still have a problem. Don't make a move for it. Nothing will happen to you. Make a move for it, things happen.
I think that's a really good point, because these are your soldiers on the street, and they risk their lives and they have no idea who they're walking up on, who's going to be in the car. And people watch social media and they're learning to just get in people's faces, like just trying to figure something out, do their job, and people are just being really disrespectful. And I really feel bad that they're getting people in their faces, and then they do have a problem. But these police officers have to be on guard. They have no idea who they're walking up to. And
no idea
they're
at all.
putting that risk, and it's a shame that people are so easily led by social media and the videos that they see online and such. So I really like that point.
My wife is a retired sergeant from the sheriff's department as well, and we have a son that's a deputy, so it's still in the family. Yeah, I'm the first person in my family on the Brink side of the family that has gone into law enforcement. I had a great grandfather that was a LAPD officer and actually ended up being the chief of Universal Police Department when they had their own police department. But he passed away before I knew him. He passed away, I think, a month or two after I was born. So I never knew him. I just heard the stories. But Adam 12 is what got me into law enforcement. And then I went to the proper agency, Sheriff's Department, and not LAPD. So. Well, I went to Arcadia Police first, and then Monterey Park Police Department, and then then the Sheriff's Department. I'm retired from Sheriff.
Let's talk about mail-in ballots. No surprising for your opponent that he voted for mail-in ballots. What is the scoop with mail-ins? Assemblyman Kyle and Gallagher had a restraining order at one point on mail-ins, and that seems to have been gone by the wayside. What are we doing, and how are we as conservatives to get through this fight?
So what I'm not a fan of mail-in ballots. When you have the back of your mail-in anonymous ballot that has your name and your party on the back of it, how is that anonymous? Nothing against the Postal Service. I've had family members who have worked for the Postal Service. I have friends that work for a Postal Service. They have a hard job. They do the best they can, but too many hands are touching this ballot after you have filled it out and are trying to get it to the registrar's office to be counted. So what I've recommended people to do, and what I've done, because my kids, they do the mail-in ballot they have since they've started voting, because they don't want to go through the hassle of going to the ballot. I take their mail-in ballots and take it to a drop-off location, either at a ballot location or a mail drop. It's not the mail drop-off, but the ballot drop-off that's done, I'm in Los Angeles County, so it's done by Los Angeles County, and most of them have them at City Hall for your individual cities. City of Arcadia has a ballot drop-off that's under a camera, so it's seen if anybody's doing any tampering or taking it out, and that is being picked up by somebody from the registrar's office and taken to the registrar's office and dropped off. So you have less hands touching it, and it's the best way to get your mail-in ballot counted. So that is what I recommend people to do. I do not recommend them mailing them to the postal service, but actually hand delivering them. And if they don't feel comfortable or can't get out, then I've asked people, if you want, have me or somebody you trust that will go take your ballot and drop it off in one of those ballot designation locations. That way you have the best chance of getting it counted, because, I, again, love the post office and the people that work there, and no offense to them, but there's too many hands that are going through it. All they have to do is look at the back of the ballot and see Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. And it's like, well, if they're a Democrat, they don't like the Republicans. They know where the Republicans are voting, which direction they're going. They're going to check them. That's part of the problem that we have. So that's how I've recommended folks to do the mail-in ballot.
Let's talk about AB 5, which has now moved into the punishment phase of subcontractors. Namely, right now in the news is Uber and Lyft drivers, and they're really taking a very hard hit. And what should voters know about AB 5?
All right, so AB 5, our independent contractors bill that has destroyed millions of jobs that people have had here in the state of California. And then to top it off, we had the pandemic hit just a couple of months later, and all those people who just lost their jobs because of AB 5 that started in January are now even getting the double hit. They can't do something from their home because the job they're considered is a independent contractor and therefore has been killed by AB 5. So now Assemblyman Kiley and others have tried to get it repealed on a number of occasions. I have sent him messages, as well as my assembly member Ed Chow, who voted for AB 5 to kill jobs in our community, to try and get this thing repealed, and yet they continue to shine that off and not have anything to do with it. So this is all labor driven. I'm law enforcement. Law enforcement uses unions or associations to represent them. I have no problem with unions and associations to the fact that they protect the employees. However, I do think that if you do not want to belong to a union, there's no reason for you to belong to it, but you should be in another category based off of what that is. And so in other words, like in law enforcement, if you don't belong to the association, then you are going to have to negotiate your contract with the police department that you work for to get your salary benefits, because you're not using the union's time and resources to do that. That's, coming from a union, I understand how that works. But why are you forcing people who want to be independent contractors? It has nothing to do with law enforcement or school teachers or anything like that, but like the Lyft drivers or Uber or interpreters, photographers, things like that, that want to be their own boss, and they want to make their own schedule, and they want to make their money the way they want to make their money without having to answer to anybody. Why are you making them become part of a union? Because you're bought and paid for by the unions, like Lorena Gonzalez says. And so that's the problem I have with this. That's the problem I have with AB 5. It needs to be repealed altogether. So this November, Prop 22 is on the ballot to help the drivers at least be having the ability to have the independence of being their own boss and having their own schedule, and not have to ask somebody for time off to have a vacation when they are their own boss. And honestly, that's what California is all about. Small businesses, being your own boss, making your own way in society, making the money that you want to make, and not having to really answer to anybody else. So Prop 22 on the ballot, that's going to be a yes. That helps take a peck at AB 5. Doesn't totally repeal, which I wish it would, but that's a step in the right direction. And then when you get people like me that are elected into office up in Sacramento in November, myself and Kevin Kiley and others, Vince Fong, who also is part of that, can get rid of this AB 5 altogether and get it repealed so that we can stop this nonsense again that's coming out of Sacramento.
So taxes, you're running to be a lawmaker. California's taxes are killing us. What needs to be done to relieve us of these killer taxes that seem to pile up daily?
Oh, that's easy. Stop voting Democrats. Democrats love a tax. There isn't a tax they haven't loved. They'll tax you for breathing the air. I think they're trying to do that one too. Folks, I have signed a pledge to not vote for any taxes. So a vote for me means that I'm not voting to raise your taxes in any way, shape, or form. I'm a supporter of Prop 13. We've got a couple of those props that are on the ballot as well. Prop 15, Prop 19, vote no on them, no matter how much you see that the schools need the money and this, that, and the other. I love our schools and I love our education, but this is the wrong direction. It's an attack on Prop 13 and you don't want that. Again, why I'm only a yes on 2 propositions and they have nothing to do with your taxes. So taxes is just terrible. We had we now have a yearly gas tax because our repeal that I was a yes on 6 part with Carl DeMaio and part of that team trying to get the repealing the gas tax in 2018. And again, people don't understand how the propositions work and they think that they're going to vote no on a proposition because they don't want the tax. And that was one of those, you had to read it and realize that you had to vote yes to repeal that tax. And a no vote meant you wanted to keep that tax. And that's the problem, folks. We got to make sure you read the propositions and understand that, is this going to be an increase in tax or not? So all these propositions that are on the ballot, 15, 19, and I think there's a couple of others on there. I'd have to look up their numbers, but they all raise your taxes by not millions, but billions of dollars tax revenue. Yes, for the state, and yes, the state needs the revenue because they don't know how to manage their money, and that's another subject. But why are you voting yourself additional taxes on top of the taxes on top of the taxes on top of the taxes we are already paying for our schools and those type of things? Let's rein this in. We all need to tighten our belts because of the pandemic and the state being closed, which we need to get opened completely. LA County is still tied very tightly down. But we need to get things and people working again. We need to get that tax revenue coming in, and we don't need to vote for any further taxes. So no on these taxes. I will not vote to raise any of the taxes. And that's what we need to do, is make sure the people you're voting in are not going to raise your taxes anymore. We pay plenty of taxes all the way around.
Let's talk about immigration, but not in the typical setting. I want to talk about something you said and allow you to expand because it was profound. You said, while it's common to hear the phrase, immigrants come to America to seek a better life, what is really happening is that Asian immigrants, and most immigrants as well, are seeking a better life from communism, socialism, and liberalism. So if you can think about it from the Chinese, Vietnamese, Koreans, Filipinos, and many other smaller Asian countries, it's not just a better life, but better life from communism, socialism, and liberalism. Where are you going with this quote, and why did you mention it in terms of immigration? I think it's important because we typically go to the border. This affects Asian communities too, who are here to escape socialism and communism.
Absolutely, and you just hit the nail on the head. Most people think when you're talking about immigration, it has something to do with the Mexican border. No, it's all immigration. You have from Canada, you have from Asia, you have from the Middle East, you have from, pick whatever country you want. It's just not a Hispanic issue. And if you really look at the big picture, everybody who is leaving their country and wants to come to America because they want to be free, they want to have their own business, they want to be their own boss. And they are leaving the countries they're coming from to get away from that. Yet here we are, especially in California, which is far, far left and believes in socialism and communism and, you know, whatever they want to call it to make it sound really, really cool with their Kool-Aid. But these are things that they were getting away from. Why would you be voting for these people to do exactly what you got away from? You know, my son, one of my sons, he's part Asian. His mother was born here, but her parents her grandparents actually came from China. So it just brought it over that direction. And as a matter of fact, my ex-father-in-law and I are still very good friends. He's also a retired deputy from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So it kind of makes it really funny on that aspect. But here's the thing. You've got people from all these places that are trying to get away from the socialism and the communism and government control to have the freedoms that we have here in the United States. It's the only country in the world that we have the freedoms that we have. And so why would you vote to take away your freedoms? And that is what is happening here in the state of California. It's starting to happen in some of our other states, New York and that type of thing. That's why we all need to pay attention. We all need to get up and vote and make sure that we're voting in what we believe in, and that's our freedoms. My family members have fought in the wars, and they fought for our freedoms. Me as a law enforcement officer, now retired, I fought for our freedoms. Even though police officers take your freedoms away by arresting you, I'm protecting our freedoms from the criminals. So we can be free out in public and safe to move about without any problems. But when you have the criminal element and now our political element that is trying to restrict your freedoms, I have a problem with that. So I will be pushing very, very hard to stop these far left divides that are ruining our state and country, and make sure we get back to the freedoms that we have always had, to be able to go out to the store when I want to go out and not have to wear a mask because of what they think is going to kill us when the death rate is so low. We didn't do that for the bird flu. We didn't do that for other things, yet you're having government control you. We need to get away from these politicians that want to control you. Politicians work for you, not you working for the politicians. People forget that. The politicians have forgot that. Remember what I said, I'm not a politician, I'm a community member who is upset what is happening in Sacramento, and I want to represent my community and the people here to make sure they have that representation. I will fight the politicians trying to control every aspect of our lives. Our Second Amendment rights, our First Amendment rights, the social media that's now trying to limit what type of freedoms that you can say on social media. These are issues that all can still be coming from the immigration issue and how they are controlling with their far left control ideas against you and what you want to do.
So is there anything else you'd like to talk about today?
Yes, I want to make sure everybody who is watching this votes. I don't care if you're a Republican, an independent, a Democrat, whatever party you are, you do not have a voice if you don't vote. Make sure that, because of all these mail-in ballots, people are going to get lazy, don't want to go to the polls. Make sure you take your ballots to a official ballot drop-off location for your area so that you have the least amount of hands touching your ballot that has been marked up by you. And I don't want people to be lazy saying, my vote doesn't matter, it's a rigged election, we have voter fraud, pick every excuse in the world to not vote. Now with this mail-in, it's pretty simple. You can be in your easy chair, fill in the bubble, and then take it to somebody who will take it for you to a special ballot drop-off location to make sure your vote's heard. That's what's happening in the state of California. We have plenty of Republicans in the state of California to turn the state red. That's why I'm wearing my Flip It Red tie today. I want to make sure people understand we need to vote for our communities and our freedoms and not vote for socialism, communism, and everything else that the far left is trying to put onto us. Wake people up, encourage them to vote. If you're not registered to vote, register to vote, and let's change the direction California is going and make it really the great state of California it used to be. We can bring it back. I know a lot of my friends and family have moved out of California because they don't think we can save it. I'm here, I'm fighting. There's many like me fighting. We're fighting for you, we're fighting for our freedoms. Let's go out and do that. Let's vote red, and let's flip California, and let's take our state back from the communism and socialisms and every other ism you can think of that the far left is trying to put onto us. And I really appreciate this time, Ann.
Thank you for giving us your time and getting to know you better. You're obviously a very qualified candidate. Your experience in law enforcement and your incredible organization and desire to serve the public in your community will benefit people of California. For more information on Burton Brink, please go to his website, burtonbrink.com. That's Burton, BurtonBrink.com. And please give, and give big. We don't have Hollywood elite or Silicon Valley billionaires behind us, and Burton needs your help and support. Anything helps. So thank you, Burton. Thank you, Burton. It's been a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, Ann. It's been my pleasure. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.